everyone, and welcome to the Alexa Show. My name is Alexa Serbo-Didio, and I am your host. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Well, tonight I have such an incredible show planned. On the line, I have Eric Aaron Alter. He's a producer, a playwright, and also a director at a private school in New Jersey. Eric, welcome to the Alexa Show.
Thanks for having me, Alexa.
Yes, I really wanted to have you back on tonight to really discuss numerous topics such as COVID, school kids, also the theater, and all the work that you've been doing. What have you been seeing a lot going on in the school system?
So right now in New Jersey, from March until basically July 1st, as I think New York and most probably everywhere else around the country, schools have been forced to close. So right now we haven't really had kids back in our building since March. And our goal is students back in the building in September.
I think, there's so many different layers to this with returning to school, with virtual learning. I find, there is also some positives to this because I think a lot of times, I deal with a lot of children and teens that have issues with anxiety, bullying, depression, OCD. And I found by being home virtually and doing the programs virtually, they've been able to come out of their shell a little bit more. And also I know those who do enjoy going to school, it's been a transition to learn virtually. What do you think about that?
So I think it's a great point. On the plus side, I think people certainly spent a lot of time together where they may not have prior, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. I think for kids and students, it's sort of a double-edged sword. I think there's a positiveness that you can get from staying home and doing virtual learning for a period of time. And, look, school brings out a tremendous amount of socialization. It brings out a tremendous amount of friendships. It brings out a tremendous amount of learning that, although I know it's being done more virtually, for a lot of students, they need that teacher in front of the classroom. They need to see it on a blackboard. They need to touch it on a computer where they can have a teacher come right over to them and sort of show them what they're doing. Also, in a school like ours, have what we call our special subjects and things like wood shop that you can't really do virtually online, and even gym and recess and those kinds of things. I mean, it's different when a gym teacher says, hey, go out and run around the block or do push-ups and sit-ups, virtually, as opposed to having somebody there in school with you. So there's pros and cons to both models. But I think overall, I think most people would agree that having students back in school is probably the goal, of almost every educator.
Bullying and cyberbullying and social media, we've spoken about a lot. How do you think that has begun so much because now our students, our children are really online all the time for school, for, different types of homework. Do you feel like the cyberbullying and the bullying has really increased?
I mean, I don't have any hard data to say that it has or it hasn't, but I can only imagine that, now that students are home, it brings in, unfortunately for bullies, it brings in a whole different layer. Like, I'm looking right now at you and what your background is. You have a bed there, you have things. People get to see where other people live and what their conditions are. And, if they have, a pet or a dog, or they live with 5 people or 2 people or 7 people. So, it also sort of speaks to, their current situation. What are they wearing on the Zoom call? Now people can take pictures, they can get out their phone and take a picture of you. And I'm sure that it opens the door for more, unfortunately, it may open the door for more bullying, because now you're just like you said, standing behind or sitting behind a computer screen. So it becomes easier in a way, to do the cyberbullying, to do the social media type of bullying and those kinds of things.
Yes. Now, you're also a playwright, and you've had many, many plays about social issues, mental health issues. How has that been? Do you feel a play might come out about COVID-19?
Well, interestingly enough, I haven't really written anything about COVID, although I did have an idea the other day about, an online COVID dating play where, you don't actually get to meet the person and you have like a date basically online, like a Zoom date kind of thing. But I haven't had any, you know, inspiration in terms of writing something about the pandemic. But I think that there's so many, you know, areas and topics that you could write about. I mean, certainly about loss. I mean, you know, when COVID first hit, people had obviously loved ones that died, and they were not actually able to have a funeral for them at the time, which, you know, I can't even imagine. And loved ones weren't able to travel far distances to see, you know, their deceased. People currently who have loved ones in nursing homes. You know, a friend of mine's mother is in a nursing home, and he said to me the other day, you know, I went to the nursing home and I talked to her through the window. I mean, you know, it's a crazy new world that we're living in. I know people are trying to adapt to it as best they can, but to speak to, you
Yes.
know, what you said before about mental health issues, I mean, it has been an incredibly stressful time.
Yes, yes. And I think, you know, if either you're suffering with a mental illness or not, it's such an adjustment, a way of living. But I think it's also such a hard idea to grasp. Yes, we're all going through it, we're living through it. It's reality. But I know I even find myself sometimes, you know, walking into the store or doing something and saying, wait a second, there's a virus. I have to put my mask on. Wait a second. I have to also keep that second thought before doing those daily things, going to the supermarket, going to the dentist, doing that. There's that extra little, you know, kind of thought about it. And I think, you know, if you're suffering with a mental disorder, anxiety, or anything like that, I can only just imagine how now there's even overthinking. Because I think it's so important, you know, self-care and also knowing what is motivating for you. You know, what are your passions, and really being able to take care of yourself. And I think having this extra time that we have to be with ourselves really can be a positive where we can focus on, okay, what are my goals? What are things that are in my, you know, range that I can actually do right now during these different circumstances? So you start bringing up, you know, increasing your self-confidence, increasing, you know, being positive, and finding that hope in the world, because I find it's so important to have that hope and to have that joy, and also looking forward to what tomorrow could bring.
You know, look, I may never, ever get this time again. And if I don't make the best out of the time that I have, like time off, and, you know, then I only have myself to blame. So I have done a lot of writing, and I think people should embrace it. Like you said, look, they're not commuting every day the way they used to be, right? They weren't getting up at 5 a.m, getting on a train and a bus. Now you're working from home. I'm not saying that you're not working hard, but you have more time to be with your family. You have more time to do self-care for yourself, you know, all the time in the car and on the bus and the train and all those things. And even traveling, when people travel for work, you have that time now. So if you don't make the most out of that time, whatever that most means for you, family, writing a book, learning an instrument, learning a language, all those kinds of things, I mean, you may never get that time again to do that.
Yes, yes. I always tell people this is a once in a lifetime chance, that this is a time in the world where everybody in the world is in the same exact spot that you are.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to feel guilty, like maybe I should be going to work more, maybe I should be going to the gym more, maybe I should be doing this. Everybody is home in their houses trying to figure out what they can do, how they can do it. And you can also take that time to say, okay, when, you know, even when you're working from home, make sure you take your days off, and also make sure you have
Sure.
some vacation days. Because so many times people say, well, you're on vacation, you're home. No, you work a lot harder sometimes when you're at home, because you feel like, I'm home, I should be working more. But I think, you know, taking those couple of days off and giving yourself that vacation, so you also learn how to kind of relax your mind and also decompress.
Sure. I mean, I always tell people, you know, especially the kids, you know, they come in early in the morning off the bus, and I hate school and blah, blah, blah. I hate it here. I want to be home. And I always tell people, you know, and even the teachers sometimes, oh, you know, I say, be careful what you wish for. So now what you wish for came true, right? You get to get out of your bed each morning. You don't have to shower, get in your PJs. You can learn from it. But I have to tell you that so many people want to be back to work, and they want to be back at school. And I think it just speaks volumes for, you know, who we are as human beings is, you know, we want to have that interaction. You know, it's great to have a Zoom meeting, and a friend of mine from high school set up this Zoom meeting every Thursday night for anybody who wanted to attend, just sit around, talk. And I think those things are great. But at the end of the day, human beings have a need for personal interaction, personal touch, being less than 6 feet apart from somebody, getting a hug from somebody, shaking hands, high-fiving. Those things has sort of gone by the wayside. I do think, and I have hope that we will get back to that. It may take a year, it may take 6 months, but I do think we will get back to that. And hopefully we've come out the other side of this entire pandemic better people, and learn a lot about, like you said, ourselves, our families, our spouses, our kids, those kinds of things.
Absolutely. We're almost at the end of the show. Eric, what would be one piece of advice that you would give those kids getting ready to go back to school, either virtually or in person, that are feeling a little nervous or apprehensive, and also the parents?
So that's a really good question. I think it's important for the kids to sort of realize that we're doing everything in our power, at least speaking for our school, to make it as safe and as sanitary and clean as possible, and those kinds of things. And it's going to be a little different. I mean, there's not going to be as much movement, I would think, in most schools throughout the country. You're not going to go to a cafeteria anymore. Those kinds of things the students should be well prepared for. And as for the parents, I think, look, they have to have enough trust in the school that they're sending their child to, and enough in the health departments and the educators that we're doing everything in our power to make it as clean and safe for their students, for their children to return to school, so they can get the most out of learning.
Yes, yes. And I think, it's really important for the kids to go back to being kids and worrying about being a kid and getting their schoolwork done. I know that the adults are taking care of all the adult business. Well, Eric, thank you again so much for coming on tonight. It's been just such a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Anytime I can come on. You do great work, and I know we worked together before, so keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Everybody, have a good night, and God bless.